So, good afternoon, and I will be siding the pro side, which is the sex education should be required in all schools. Define First is we need to define what is sex education. It is high quality teaching and learning about a broad variety of topics related to sex and sexuality, exploring values and beliefs about those topics, and gaining the skills that are needed to navigate relationships and manage one's own sexual health. We all know it is made to believe that sex is a taboo topic, especially here in the Philippines, and should never be talked about, when the fact is, sex is a natural phenomenon. All students in all schools, especially high school and college levels, both private and public sectors, are the ones be given the comprehensive knowledge about sex education. Systematically providing sex education will help students to learn about the process of reproduction and procreation, and will alleviate myths and provide accurate information. In the stage of high school and college students, we're going through many bodily changes and the maturity of the students exists. And here, sex education will answer their questions about sexuality and changes in their bodies and in mentally as well. They will benefit to it where it will give them a healthy perception about theirs as well as bodies of the other gender and make them responsible adults. So according to the DOH Epidemiology Bureau, in the HIV/AIDS report in the Philippines, that from April to June 2020, there are 934 newly confirmed HIV positive individuals reported to the HIV and AIDS Registry of the Philippines. About 29% had clinical manifestations of advanced HIV infection at the time of testing, and 94% of the newly diagnosed were male, and the median age was around 28 years old, ranges 1 to 67 years old. And almost half of the cases, or 48%, were 25 to 34 years old, where here college students' age ranges, and 28% were 15 to 24 years old at the time of the diagnosis, which also the high school students' age ranges. Meanwhile, on February 2021, the Philippines has recorded a 7% increase in births among girls aged 15 and below in 2019, up from the figure on teenage pregnancies in 2018. The data from the Commission of Population and Development. And people are ignorant when it comes to sex education. But sex education is for the preparation and to give awareness to the students and more to prevent future happenings. So basically, ignorance isn't education, but by recognizing our ignorance, we open up to a discovery of the world through curiosity, learning from mistakes, dialogue with other standpoints, and refusing to acknowledge reality isn't education. When schools take on the responsibility of the education of a child, they owe it to them to teach them to protect themselves or self-defense. As a society, we must move beyond our taboos. Together, we must be aware and knowledgeable on this topic because it is not easy to deal with pressures and judgments. With the implementation of the sex education, especially high school and college students will become more responsible and better informed citizens, and this will even help in controlling the population. Lastly, all students in all schools, especially high schools and colleges, will be implemented in this sex education. That's all.
Okay, hi everyone. I stand with sex education shouldn't be required in all schools. So, first, let's define what is sex education again. So, sex education is high quality teaching and learning about a broad variety of topics related to sex and sexuality. And I know this topic is very important. However, we must understand that implementing and requiring all schools to teach sex education is a bit difficult because we all have different beliefs, cultures, religion, and parents' way of teaching. So sex education teaching sometimes steps on someone else's property, meaning it go beyond boundaries. So one example is you can contradict what parents teach their sons and daughters at home, and you need to ask permission first because sex education topics might not be allowed to their cultures, religion, family, and teachings. Um, it might open a conflict between the family members and causes emotional and spiritual disturbances. So now I will point out my opposition to some of her statements. So first, in her statement, she mentioned that students will learn about process of right reproductions and procreation. It's like giving them a green light for sexual activity. So how about schools that practice religious doctrines, and these schools must be exempted because the fact that most of the students who enter these schools are practicing religious doctrines, they are aware that sex education is no longer needed. Some of the students don't know these ideas yet. Instead, educators are giving them a hint on how to do it and in what way they can do it. It's giving the students a mixed signal. And again, according to her percentage, the numbers that she mentions about unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted disease, and HIV, about uh, and it's about lack of sexual education, of course. So it's just like telling them to use condom or other contraceptive when having sex, thus or in result motivating them to have sex regularly. So and again, in result, there will be or sex will be their usual activity since there is a safe way to have sex without getting HIV, STDs, and unwanted pregnancy for women. um, and again, it's sending mixed signals and motivating students, right? And lastly, in her statement, she said all students in all schools, especially high school and colleges, will be implemented. So I'm really opposed to this because you can't just implement and teach sex education to all schools, even if students are in high school, college level, or if the students are on their right age, because you'll be contradicting some of their parents' teaching, like religion and cultures. Schools and instructor must first reach out to parents first before teaching these subjects or courses. Okay, so sex education has lots of pros and cons, but it must be teach only to students who approved by their parents and to students who are 18 years old and above who want to learn and broaden their learnings about sex education. So I'll end my argument by saying that sex education is really an important topic to be learned in school, but requiring it to all schools is unrealistic and unimaginable. It's like insisting your own belief to other doctrines, religion, and teaching. That's all. Thank you.